This is the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee. Call to order. It is September 12th, 2023. It's 4 o'clock exactly. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairperson Mike Seville.
Here.
Vice Chair Bill Donnell.
Here.
Alderman John Lash.
Here.
Alderman Ted Miziakos.
Present.
Alderwoman Wani Garza.
Here.
All present.
Okay, thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes 23-0699, approval of the minutes from the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee meeting held on August 22nd, 2023. Been moved by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Lash. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried 5-0. Do we ever have any members of the public wishing to speak?
No, we do not.
Okay, we'll go to the agenda then, 23-0679, resolution to accept grant funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services for $41,998. Eric. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Eric Bryan with the Grand Army of the Republic Military Museum, part of the Community Services Department. So for this agenda item, we applied for a grant, no matching grant, through the the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and we were awarded $41,998 for collection preservation equipment, which is a really fancy way of saying storage for our artifacts and archives.
Motion to approve. That's
Question?
great.
So there's no display? This is just for the storage of the artifacts? or-
Right, this is for the preservation and long-term care of the artifacts.
Okay.
So where are you storing them then?
Right now, currently, we're at the Hogan Building, and we're in the process of redeveloping the 745 Aurora Avenue facility, and that's where the new equipment will be placed.
Do we have much storage at 745 Aurora Avenue right now?
Right now, there was some other departments in there. I'm not sure exactly what, but we were then given the building after. I think it was mid-spring of this year, we were given the building to move in permanently.
So you have the whole building to yourself?
We are separating a portion off for, I believe, fleet storage. I'm not entirely sure.
Storage?
Some type of city vehicle storage. They're building a wall almost down center, but taking up a little bit more of their
large
space.
blue building?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, so we'll get a large portion of that, and we'll be able to grow, hopefully, for well over the next 10 to 15 years. That's assuming that we'll get a large influx of donations.
Mhm. And then that you'll be able to rotate in terms of putting those in storage once in a while to exhibits for people to see. Is that what the idea is?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do right now. We have our displays transition out every 3 to 6 months.
Great.
Actually, starting on Friday, we have a new exhibit. I want to plug this. It's a temporary exhibit coming from the 1st Division Museum in Wheaton. It's titled The Mexican-American Experience, and it talks about the Mexican-American experience in the U.S. Army all the way from the Revolutionary War through today. So it opens on Friday, the 15th at noon.
Great.
Right.
Nice plug.
Thanks.
You. We appreciate it.
Second?
And moved by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Donnell. Any questions? Anything more to add, Eric? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried 5-0. Okay. The next one is a charitable solicitation application 23-0724 for Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois' Girl Scout Cookie Program on January 5th, 2024 to March 10th, 2024.
Hi, I'm Anna Jarrett, Director of Product Programs for Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois. You guys always are so generous and approve our requests so girls can be out in your community selling cookies, holding booths, delivering cookies, all that kind of fun stuff.
Great. Any questions?
Nope.
No?
Quick question.
Alderman Lash?
What kind of booths do you typically have?
We secure in front of Walgreens, Walmarts, some girls do gas stations, churches, schools, things like that, mostly on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Kind of all over the city?
Yes. Now, my council only covers, Eola Road is our dividing, and we cover the west side, and Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois covers the east side. So our girls stay on the, so that's our dividing line. So, but yes, in essence, all over your lovely city, yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you also going to pick a site here on City Hall?
I'm sorry,
Are you also going to pick a site up here in the City Hall on the first floor?
well, I've never been asked that before, but I'm going to write that down that you said that.
You had a very successful campaign here one time after a meeting. They came for a meeting, and then they sold cookies.
Yep.
Yep. Well, I don't know, check it out
Well,
all the time. Bring some, bring some, bring some.
I know, and all of my cookies are expired technically, so you guys might not want them. But I will make sure a Girl Scout delivers some cookies to you all.
Oh, no, we're not looking for anything free. It was all
Well,
for sales. There was a presentation like Alderman Donnell said here at City Council, and then later on, they all met us after the meeting.
That's
people
really
leaving
neat. I wonder what
downstairs.
troop that was.
And,
Regina Arnold?
'cause-
Mary Garza? Those are the ones I know off the top of my head.
It may have, or Alderman Bug's daughter was?
No, Alderman Bug's daughter used to do that over in the Alderman's office, and
Okay.
I don't think she's any longer in the Girl Scouts, but it isn't. So, but we had a lull for a few years up until recently.
Yep. Yeah, they age out, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
Well, thank you
you.
guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Can we
coming.
motion on that?
This is just for information only, right? Yeah, okay.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. The next item is a 23-0728, an ordinance amending Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to peddlers and solicitors. This is for information only. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, good afternoon. Jennifer Stalling, City Clerk, and Deb Ling from the Law Department is participating in the presentation as well. We have previously presented these proposed amendments to the Rules Administration and Procedures Committee, and we are presenting this before the PHST Committee because the PHST Committee, as we have just all witnessed, has firsthand input into the some of the peddlers and solicitors permits. So what I have today is just an overview of the general concepts that we are proposing to change. There is an attached Exhibit A to the Legistar item that does identify all of the changes that we are proposing to make. So the first proposal is to limit the locations where peddlers and solicitors can operate. Currently, you can see under the current language there, it's somewhat ambiguous as far as, it's subject to interpretation as far as where people can peddle and solicit. What we are proposing, because my office has come across lots of questions over the last few years as far as whether someone can operate outside of a gas station, if they sell similar items in that gas station, whether or not that's appropriate. What we are proposing is just to add that you may not operate on private businesses or vacant premises. This is to avoid having those kind of temporary setups like tents and those types of things. Every time. Okay. Second modification that we are asking to make is this accompanies the first modification, no outdoor sales. So this covers the temporary sales structures like tents, mobile carts, those types of things, unless, of course, they are permitted as mobile food vendors or other uses under Chapter 49, meaning some stores are authorized to sell plants outside during certain times of the year, special events, or then any other provision of the code that allows temporary outdoor sales. So currently, we do not require our door-to-door for-profit solicitors, or any of them, to obtain a background check before we give them a permit. So we ask the questions on our application to somewhat screen for offenses that would preclude them or that we would not want them to go door to door. Specifically, we ask if they have, if they are a convicted sex offender, if they've been convicted of a violent crime, convicted of a felony or misdemeanor crime, and we really rely on their word. We have no way of checking that. So that's one issue. The second issue with that is that we have had those honest people who have actually been upfront about what their criminal history says. And unfortunately, our current code does not have, it doesn't give us anything to do with that. It doesn't give us any direction as far as whether we should deny them or whether we're allowed to deny them or whether we can allow them to solicit. So these updates that we're proposing hopefully will help that situation. With respect to the background checks, we do require background checks for our liquor license applicants. The owners and managers have to have background checks every 3 years. I did see one, if you were looking at the exhibit in Legistar, that I need to change. I do have in the section regarding background checks that it's every 2 years. Every 3 years is consistent with the liquor, so we would be proposing the every 3 years if that's something you would entertain. Additionally, we are allowing for, because a blanket no to anyone who's had a felony may not necessarily be fair. So we are proposing that we add in a provision to the code, much like the liquor code, that allows for an applicant to be found rehabilitated to so that the public can trust them. That's pretty difficult standard, but if they are able to present enough evidence that they have been rehabilitated, or if 10 years has gone by since their felony, it was a nonviolent, then we would certainly look at that again. That's the proposal that we are making here for that. Along those same lines, for the charitable solicitors, we do currently ask them to complete an affidavit. We would ask to stay with the same affidavit, only specifically identifying the updated convictions or sex offender violators, but they would not be required to obtain a background check. The thought behind that is, again, we're not going to ask Girl Scouts to go out and have a background check. These are generally groups. Obviously, they're not for profit, they're charitable, volunteers. So we compare this to the for-profit groups. Go ahead, Ms. Lang.
Oftentimes, those nonprofit groups like the Girl Scouts do require background checks for some of the people in the organization. I know as a cookie mom and troop leader, I had to submit to a background check. So you oftentimes have that already within the organization.
So there's some degree of safety just inherently baked into some of those organizations. Baked cookies, yeah. So as far as the charitable solicitor's permit applications, currently, as you all know, again, the charitable solicitation groups apply through the alderman's office. They present in front of the PHST committee for information only, so that everyone is aware of what's going on out there. What we are asking to do, and we have spoken with the alderman's chief of staff about this, is combine the charitable solicitations permit application process into the clerk's office. It seems to just make sense, but for you all wanting to perhaps continue to see the applicants before they actually go out and solicit. So it seems that a one-stop kind of shop for these applications makes sense to us as far as the administration is concerned. And so this is something that we wanted to bring before you and kind of get your input on this as to whether or not it's something that you would prefer to continue to have. One argument, not argument as much as weighing against having them come before you, is that you often have volunteers, charitables, organizations who come in the middle of the workday or the end of the workday for some people to present in front of you. Now, we may be able to have a different notification process for you that my office could provide to you. Obviously not having someone come in front of the PHST committee to present their application, but we could certainly notify you when there are charitable solicitors that will be out there. Now, are there any questions or concerns about this that you would like to talk about before we go forward?
Any questions in the committee about the process change? Would it be, go ahead, Alderman Macias.
I don't see, I can understand, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can understand going to the city clerk's office for the process, but I don't see it as cumbersome for at least informing us on our agenda about what's coming forward, whether they come or not. I mean, having a applicant or representative of the applicant come before us is not mandated. But it does provide also an opportunity to put the message out in public, and we have it here on YouTube as well for the community who might be listening in also. I understand the value in terms of giving us the input in a separate format, but this is a format that all the aldermen already get it through on their Granicus. But also, again, it also provides it here to the community via YouTube in this live recording.
And absolutely, it's definitely some notification. It's a good notification process. I think that if you would prefer to stay operating that way, understandable completely. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to move the process to the city clerk's office if someone is going to continue to present the information directly at committee. It almost makes sense just to keep doing it the way that you have.
What is it that's cumbersome with that approach? Because really, it's just for information only,
Sure.
right? And
Yep.
like I said, it's not something that we mandate anybody to come to us and present either.
Well, I think that what it is then it brings an additional layer of meeting attendance, additional layer of Legistar processing to my office that isn't necessarily linked directly to the solicitors. So my position on this is that if it's going to be a Legistar item regardless, which is perfectly understandable, my vote would be just to leave it as it is at this point. And then also, if you would like to discuss whether or not you want to change the language for having people come in and present, we can certainly look at doing something like that. It might save a little bit of legwork.
Has this been considered before the Rules Committee as of yet?
Yes.
And what was their vote?
They voted they recommended it.
To be changed?
Yes, to be changed. They did recommend,
The whole package.
yes. What is being presented to you
Correct.
today, they recommended it.
Right, so
Or committee of the
our vote is only once it goes to City Council.
To committee of, official vote to city council,
So
correct.
my question is of similar mind to Alderman Mestiacos. Would it be appropriate to consider not having these solicitor organizations coming to this committee but to have it just on the agenda and you could be there to just say, these are the solicitations that were approved in my office on the clerk's office.
And I do think that, yeah, along the same lines as Alderman Masiacos. If we're going to, that really doesn't cut down on the amount of work for us as far as someone attending the meeting.
No, I'm saying not to have them attend. You just
Oh,
presenting it.
I mean, staff from my office, mostly me.
I thought you were always here at these meetings almost anyway. Is that right?
It seems like it, yeah.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't
The
be
liquor
sending out
items,
there,
yes.
so.
Yes, and it's my favorite committee, of course. So it's not a matter of, it's really going to be up to what the council prefers, and if you have a certain level of comfort with having the organizations appear in front of you, that's certainly up to you.
Okay. Alderman Janelle.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the for-profit solicitation does not come before us?
It does not.
And that would be one that I might be more concerned about than the Girl Scouts. I think the problems that many of us have talked about come from the for-profit, and I've had several of them come to my front porch, and I say, "Where's your ID?" "Oh, it's in the car," and this and that, and so those are the kind of issues I think we have, and especially after the hailstorm.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people knocking on doors that weren't ID'd, so.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Alderman, it seems a lot that the rule breakers are not the people who have the permits. So you would actually be seeing the rule followers in front of you as opposed to those who don't follow any of the rules.
Right.
So yes, and I might add, I don't believe that you would enjoy having all of those people in front of you.
No, we think you're doing a pretty good job, but I want to let you get to the end of your presentation,
Yes.
but I also want to talk a little bit about consequences.
Yes.
So the rule breakers.
Okay.
And who enforce it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Alderman Lash.
just a quick conversation on this. We're, at this point in the discussion, we're just talking about shifting the responsibilities over to your office from the alderman's office. I am curious what, if you don't mind, what the burden is on the alderman's office to process these applications, if it's significant or not. I have no real weighing in, I'm just curious.
Rich Jacobs, Chief of Staff for the Office of Alderman. We do not issue the permit. The clerk's office issues it. It's on our page of the website where they can apply for the charitable solicitation. We get the information. Kathy follows up. Currently in our office, Kathy McCabe is the one that administers this. It's just an extra step to get it into legislature. It's just administrative. We have really, if we don't do any of this and it goes directly to the clerk's office, they're still getting their permit.
Okay, so it just changes where the application starts, and I understand your point about one-stop shopping. Thank you.
Alderman Masiacos.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the administrative. I don't have an issue overall, but moving it over to the clerk's office, I think, is perfectly fine. The question is, it's about the community and also us being informed as well, like we have been, whether we want to give up that opportunity to know what's going on, and the community that's watching here live also have an opportunity to know. I think that's what's really at question here. It's not so much so administrative, who does it, who doesn't do it. It's a matter of whether it's going to come before us or not. That's, I think, the way it's coming down to, for us to deliberate.
I don't know if there's an option somewhere in here where there's just always an agenda item and every time it comes to PHST, because I think the biggest issue is each legislature item that takes time to get through the approval process, to retype up a memo, all of those items. If there's a way just to have a list, nonprofit charitable organizations, and then each meeting update you. the Knights of Columbus are going to host their fundraising, and then it can be more of a verbal
Yeah, I mean,
item,
it's,
just.
we have that already from the account, I mean, from our CFO. I mean, he gives us updates on Granicus as well, you know, and we can see what's happening and not happening, and providing that information to us, you know, and then the chairman maybe can even dictate whether he wants to read them or not, or have someone from staff read them or not at the meeting.
I think the biggest point in the change that we were looking at is to cut down on staff time on that item as far as the requirements in Legistar, because it is rather tedious.
There's a lot of tedious things here, though, at the city, aren't there? There's a process, you know, and I understand, and I respect the fact that you're trying to simplify things. Mr. Chairman, I respect that, but at the point is to what degree are we comfortable with seeing that reduction? That's the only thing, 'cause from our end
Sure.
and the community's end, if any.
So ultimately, this is just for informational purposes only for this committee, and it's going to the committee of the whole, is that correct?
That is correct.
And can I ask what the vote was in the Rules Committee?
5. It was unanimous.
5-0. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments, Jennifer?
And I think if we were to, my preference would be for you to be notified of the charitable solicitors campaigns before they start. That's obviously the good thing about getting the word out there. Because my thought was maybe we just have a standing item once a month and just come in and just a report on charitable solicitors. And that's, we could certainly do that, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I
Or
think
twice
as
a month.
I think as the alderman, we would like to at least be informed in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not the formal process like we've been doing, but another way, at least so we know what's going on in our neighborhoods and across the city.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I have no issue with that. We already have that process already with the mobile food units as well. You know, we get updates with that and that permit process, in addition to what the CFO provides. I think this could fall right in line with that
Okay. Okay.
for all the aldermen, not
Okay.
just our committee.
I think maybe on a COW item.
Well, it's all, I don't know how it is, but right now it's on Granicus for finance, right? But the food truck listing, vendor listing is set
Okay.
separately, isn't it?
You know, we do send out, Socorro in my office sends out every week, I think, the solicitors and then the food trucks as well, a list of those.
And I think that your suggestion about putting it on committee of the whole or the city council agenda just for informational purposes, I think would be an informational process for all the aldermen that I think most of us would find
Yeah. Okay.
helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And getting to Alderwoman Garza's point, we reevaluated the administrative process for this for the violations. So the chart that's up on the PowerPoint shows what we currently have in our code available to us and what we are proposing. So currently we have initial hearings held by the administrative hearing officer. So initial hearings with violations written by, depends on who gets there first, but who writes more of the violations for the peddlers?
Your office?
It's we don't write the violations, but we do receive calls and we send them to customer service to be put into the Acela system so that they can be tracked, followed, notated. And our office, we give input into that, and legal has input into the administrating administrative hearing process. So if we are looking to suspend someone for violating something, we currently don't really have a process for that, but we are proposing a rule to allow my office to immediately temporarily suspend someone's permit if they have one. That's always going to be.
This is the problem. It's like Bill Donnell said, a lot of people is knocking doors and not even people from the city, it's from outside the city. And so some residents in the neighborhood meetings asking, what is the phone I have to call to report this? And is the police, is the property standards, or city clerk, or where?
Yeah, so customer service is trained and supposed to take all of those complaints, but when you're talking to your constituents and they have a problem at 8 o'clock at night, they're going to have to wait till the next day. So obviously, always if there's a problem with someone harassing
Normally it's in
them.
the weekends.
I'm sorry, what?
Normally it's in the weekends.
On the weekends, yeah, same. So if it's something where they feel threatened, if they're being harassed, if someone's trespassing and they won't leave, they would call 911 for that. Otherwise, I want to put out some guidance for the residents as far as step by step. Here's what you should do, and here's what would help us in the hearing process if, when someone comes to your door, you can obtain the following information. If you have a Ring doorbell, we would love that footage. If you have a photograph of their badge, those types of actual specific information is what is required for us to actually get a hold of the violators and to bring them in.
Okay.
Yeah. We hear from a lot of people as well, unfortunately.
I've got a question. No, I'll defer.
Have we ever thought about imposing, I'm talking about people that don't bother to get a permit. Have we ever, and the guys that, have the bag with the gravel and throw it up on the driveway, have we ever thought about a fine structure to deter that?
The problem that we've encountered with them is somehow those companies know how to evade us. They leave the bag and the rock, and people have brought the bag and the rock to us. And I personally made a call a few weeks ago, several weeks now, to the number on one of these flyers that was left. And I was very honest and asked for their mailing address, and he said, "What do you want it for?" And I said, "I'm calling from the city of Aurora, and we have a violation to send you," and click. I mean, I didn't expect anything other than that, but it's just very difficult to get a hold of them. We don't necessarily have the tools that we need if we don't have the police going out after these people. And we have limited resources as it is. I think that what we're putting together here has evolved over some time, and out of necessity, we're presenting it. But I think that if it keeps getting worse, we're going to have to look at something else. I just don't know what that would be right now. So we've also got the a proposal for banning the companies for a year, and then we have a proposal for them to be able to appeal their suspension, which we didn't have before. So I think these are big steps in the process, but again, we're always going to run up against that brick wall that we can't find people, unfortunately. And maybe with more resident community education, that may help.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Madam Clerk, my question is this. Is there a way to post this also? Now, I think it works probably hand in hand with what we just talked about a few minutes ago. A way of posting who has the right to solicit in the city on our website so people can check as well, or no? Do we have that option available right now, or no?
We do. We
Okay.
do. Yep. We keep the list updated, I believe, Socorro is really good. She probably does it every time she adds a new one, but at least once a week. We have a link on the website that anyone can click on and see.
Okay, so that way, if somebody receives the mail, the bag in the rock, or that little card in their door, they can just go to the city website and find out if it's legit or not, correct?
Yep.
As well?
Yep, absolutely.
And-
They can go and maybe, again, that may just be more of a community education thing that we need to point that out. And I have thought if you have meetings and you'd like someone to come and present to your residents in your wards, I'd be happy to do that and talk about solicitors.
Well, it'd be great. I appreciate that invitation. I might take you up on that as well. It'd be great to have these lists to talk with the community, in case they ask. Like the food truck vendors were a big topic for a while, so it's great to have the list, at least for the while, to go back to the community and just have a discussion about it. But also with these for-profits and not-for-profits as well.
Yes.
Conversations too, maybe give us that option.
Yes.
I think that might go a long way also. But no, thank you, I appreciate it. Appreciate the input.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Alderman Loesch.
I just want to say that I also agree with that very strongly, both a list of approved vendors and a list of banned or suspended vendors. So when somebody shows up on the door, they can go, and it should be wherever people Google and find out
Yeah.
permitting rules in City of Aurora. So it's easy for them to decipher who has it, whether it's not-for-profit, for-profit. The long
trucks.
list of permits, to me, that's the most transparent and easy way to let people get information without encumbering your office further.
Yeah, no, and that's great. I think probably at this point, it is just a matter of getting the word out there to the public that the list is there for them if they need it. But it's, peddlers it's a tough situation at times. The next item is we currently allow, subject again to some interpretation, people to leave materials on vehicles sometimes. To avoid having to interpret this section of the code, we were just proposing that you can't leave materials on vehicles ever. We do get a lot of complaints about that as well. Along those same lines, we are proposing that you cannot leave materials at private premises unless you hand them to someone. So I added the no leaving rocks and bags with materials. At RAP, it was proposed a very good recommendation to add materials cannot be left on a driveway, sidewalk, or adjacent public right-of-way as well, because apparently people have kind of skirted around the rule and have started leaving things on the driveway as well. So when I say materials, I'm technically talking about what's defined as handbills in the code. We currently have a distinction between commercial and non-commercial handbills. We're asking to remove that distinction from the definitions. We want to avoid the appearance that we are regulating based on speech. So when we currently we say commercial handbill, non-commercial handbill, we're just proposing to combine that into one definition of handbill. Everyone else in the city can run this thing. I just never can.
Not really.
Okay. Okay, so this is specific to the section that says political campaign literature or religious materials are exempt from registration. What we are doing is we are removing the language, again, to avoid the appearance that we are regulating based upon the type of speech. So because if you are going door to door with religious, for example, or political, for example, materials that you're handing out, that is not peddling or soliciting. You're not trying to sell anything. As long as you're not asking for them to pay you for something, you're not selling anything. So it doesn't even fall under the definition of peddling or soliciting. So we do not regulate those types of actions in the city. Okay. Hours of operation. We had also a good recommendation from the RAB committee to prohibit peddling or soliciting on state and federal holidays. And that's it. Any other questions?
Any questions, Alderman Donnell?
Questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
On page 11, line 10 and 11, we use the term he shall conform to the following regulations, and I would think we'd want to make that gender neutral.
The code has something, I believe, in chapter 1 that defines he shall be, he, she, theirs.
It-
So
yeah.
consistency throughout the code is the same. That is something we have discussed before, but there is that provision at the beginning of the code.
Okay.
Alderman Garza?
Yeah, my question is for the garage sales. So they put it almost every week, every weekend. Sometimes in a weekday, sometimes in the weekend. Then they still, it's only supposed to have only 2 a year?
Garage sales, as far as I know, it's covered under the property, is it property standards code? And it is 2.
Yeah, that's chapter 12. And we'll be working on updates to that ordinance, hopefully in the next half a year. That has not changed. I do believe it's about twice a year. That would be a call to customer service if you are seeing repeated addresses. And that way, property standards, quality of life inspectors can inspect. There's the ability to look online to see if there are postings, et cetera, so they can keep an eye out for it. Oftentimes, it starts on a Friday, and we do have our inspectors.
Okay.
And from
Thank
my
you.
understanding, it is 2 per year. However, if there's an estate sale, if somebody had passed in the family, you can contact the city and have more. I don't know if there's a cap on the more, but you can just request it. And the city would, I don't know if the city's ever said no, really. For
I don't know
a
that either.
bereaved type situation,
Yeah, I do not know any specific examples, but it does make sense that if there's an estate sale based upon a death.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, since we're on the subject, each event is up to 3 days, correct? For garage sale.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I believe it is.
I'm not
I
sure.
think not on Sundays. I think
I
Fridays
think
and
it's a 3
Saturdays.
days. I don't know if it stays
No,
Friday,
I thought it
Saturday,
was 3 days too.
for each event.
I can do the research after, once I get my computer back, and then let
Please,
the committee
please
know
bring
on
that
the garage
information.
sales.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that.
Alderman Lash?
On the background checks. I just want to clarify, we don't actually do a background check. Is that accurate? Did I hear you say that?
We do not require peddlers and solicitors to obtain background checks and submit the information with their applications. Correct.
Okay. And then what is the language like on the application about the background or criminal history? Specifically, I mean, because I have the concerns that you brought forward in the PowerPoint slides that this could deter somebody from even applying or being truthful about it. And the truth is that I don't believe we have background checks for a lot of our for-profit sales or businesses that interact with people in the public with respect to employment, but some people, some employers do. And then some people trying to be returning citizens that have properly gone through rehabilitation might not be able to get a job. And this might be one of their last lines of employment is to go out, participate in some form of retail sales, right?
Sure.
So this would prevent that person from employment and reentry into society. So I guess I'm just concerned about the question, do we know what that language is like? on
Sure.
that?
Currently on the application, just off the top of my head, I believe it, we say, I hereby certify that I have not been convicted of a violent felony, and I'm just, don't quote me on this, but I am not a registered sex offender. So we ask the question, and we ask them to affirm that they are not any of those things currently. So
if we don't have it, could we add a sentence that says that this does not preclude your application
And I think
from
that that's,
consideration, something along those lines?
yeah, don't be discouraged by this question, yeah. So I think just a couple of things with respect to that. If we are going to require background checks, it'll change. The language of that will change completely. We'll have to put together a new application because it's going to be a whole different process for them. We won't have to ask those questions. We will have to tell them that they have to have the background check, obviously, and we can tell them up front on the application, here are the offenses that would preclude you. However, here's what you do if you believe that your circumstances warrant an exception. And as we were talking about this and thinking this through, it's a very fine balance between the people who are trying to earn a living and being fair and keeping the residents and the community safe from people who may not have good intentions. And that's not necessarily everyone, that's not going to come through on everyone's background check either. There's no 100% way of making sure that we keep everyone safe. I think this is a step. But as you said, we also have to make sure that we are keeping in mind the people who need to go out and work.
And then also, also it really is if we're not doing a background check, but two, we're asking just one person at that organization who's applying for the permit to answer that question. They might have other employees working for them that don't meet that requirement, right? So we're not even screening on that.
Well, so not the workaround necessarily, but the way that doesn't seem to be a problem is that each of the for-profit peddlers and solicitors are required to submit their own application and obtain their own license individually. So when you have the groups who go out for the charitable solicitors, that's where we ask them, does anyone in your group have this background currently? So individually, we're asking about them individually. The companies aren't allowed to obtain the permits on behalf of their employees. They actually have to do it themselves. So hopefully, we have not had or caused that problem in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions of the committee? And again, this is just for informational purposes only, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other business to come before the PHS&T committee? Hearing none, motion for adjournment. is in
Motion to
order.
adjourn.
Moved by Alderman Garza, second by Alderman Donnell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 5-0. We are adjourned at 4:47 PM. Thank you, one and all.